Council Chair, we are now live.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody who is joining us here today. Good morning, colleagues, and good morning, City of Philadelphia. Welcome to the Committee of License and Inspections. I understand that state law currently requires that the following announcement be made at the beginning of every remote public hearing as follows. Due to the current public health emergency, City Council member committees are currently meeting remotely. We are using Microsoft Teams to make these remote hearings possible. Instructions for how the public may be viewed, offer public testimony, and public hearings of council committees are included in the public hearing notices that are published in the Daily News, in the Inquirer, and the Legal Intelligencer prior to the hearings, and can also be found on phillycouncil.com. I note that the hour has come. Ms. Atwell, would you please call the roll to take attendance? Members that are in attendance will please indicate that you are present when your name is called. Also, say a few brief words when responding so that the image will be displayed on screen when you speak. Thank you. Ms. Atwell, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Jones.
Present. And look forward to the hearings, Mr. Chairman.
Councilmember Johnson.
In the spirit of former Councilwoman Londo Reynolds Brown, good morning, good morning, good morning. Present.
Councilmember O.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, colleagues.
Councilmember Gilmore Richardson.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, colleagues, and thank you, Councilmember Johnson, for that reminder.
Councilmember Dom.
Good morning, Chairman Heenan and colleagues. Look forward to the hearing.
Councilmember Squilla will be absent, and Councilmember Heenan.
Councilman Heenan, Chairman, is present. So I want to thank you all. A quorum of the committee is present, and the hearing is now called to order. This is a public hearing of the Committee of License and Inspections regarding bill number 200365. Ms. Atwell, would you please read the title of the bill?
Bill number 200365, an ordinance amending Chapter 92500 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Fire Suppression System Workers to provide for additional licensing requirements for the fire suppression system workers, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you, Ms. Atwell. Before we begin to hear the testimony from the witnesses we have for today. Everyone who has been invited to this meeting to testify, be aware that this is a public hearing and it is being recorded. Because the public hearing is public to all participants and viewers, we have no reasonable expectation of any kind of privacy. By continuing to be in this meeting, you are consenting to be recorded. Additionally, prior to recognizing members for the questions or comments they may have for witnesses, I will note for the record at this time that we will use the chat feature available in Microsoft Teams to allow members to signify that they wish to be recognized. In order to comply with the Sunshine Act, the chat feature must only be used for this purpose. Ms. Atwell, would you please call our first panel or witness that we have here to testify this morning?
Sarah Adamo.
Good morning, Chairperson Heenan and members of the Licenses and Inspections Committee. My name is Sarah Adamo, and I am the Legislative Affairs Manager of the Department of Licenses and Inspections. I am here to provide testimony on Bill number 200365, which, if enacted, will amend Chapter 9-2500 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Fire Suppression System Workers to provide for additional licensing requirements for fire suppression system workers, all under certain terms and conditions. The Department of Licenses and Inspections mission is to ensure that structures are not only constructed in a safe, code-compliant manner, but also that they are maintained so that occupants of those structures remain safe long after the construction is completed. One of the greatest tools in building safety is the fire suppression system. A fire suppression system is essential in minimizing the loss of life in the event of a fire. However, if those systems are not properly installed or maintained, there is no guarantee that they will function properly when they are needed. It is crucial that the individuals who are installing, certifying, and inspecting these systems are properly trained and that they receive updated training as codes change. This bill, if enacted, will create 3 separate certification requirements for fire suppression system workers. The first is fire suppression system certification. The second, specialty fire suppression system certification. And the third, commercial kitchen fire extinguishing system certification. Each category of fire suppression system worker has different requirements to obtain these certifications and permits the workers to perform different tasks. The fire suppression system certification is an existing certification that is needed to perform work on fire suppression systems. Currently, this certification permits the installation, alteration, repair, testing, and inspection of fire suppression systems. This bill makes 2 changes to the fire suppression system certification. First, a worker who only has this certification is no longer permitted to perform annual inspections of water-based fire suppression systems. Additionally, in order to maintain this certification, continuing education credits must be obtained by the worker. The bill also proposes to create a new certification, specialty fire suppression system certification. This certification is required for any individual who is performing the annual inspection of water-based fire suppression systems. In order to obtain the specialty fire suppression system certification, the fire suppression worker must obtain the ASSE 1510 Water-Based Fire Protection Certification administered by the American Society of Sanitation Engineers. This training is a rigorous course that provides both conceptual and hands-on learning. The certification must be renewed every 3 years, which ensures that the fire suppression system workers are always up to date on advances in the applicable codes. Lastly, the bill proposes the creation of the Commercial Kitchen Fire Suppression System certification. This certification provides an alternative licensing requirement for those workers who only perform commercial kitchen extinguishing work. The department supports this bill and the proposed amendments. We are prepared to adjust the licensing procedure should this bill become law. Thank you for the opportunity to provide the department's testimony. I am happy to answer questions at this time.
Thank you for your testimony. We do have a question. Lauren, somebody's in, a member is asking for a question. Can you recognize, please?
That would be Councilmember Curtis Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for recognizing me. Quick question. I believe it was 2015, City Council moved and required that all fire suppression systems move from dry to wet. I believe that was when we passed that law. How have large multi-unit structures complied with that law?
You'll have to forgive me. That was a little bit before my time working with council. My understanding of, when applications come into LNI, they're not only required to comply with local requirements, but also the IBC and IEBC, which is the existing building code. For the most part, all residential buildings are required to be sprinklered. In the majority of cases, it would be a wet system. There are a couple exceptions where you don't actually want a wet system, and that's in like garages that aren't conditioned, so you don't want the pipes to freeze. However, the majority of residential structures, as well as a high percentage of commercial structures, are going to be sprinklered with these wet systems.
So, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for paying close attention to this issue, as well as your efforts to work to codify our L&I regs with the state L&I regs. Sometimes that's not the sexy work that winds up on the front page of the paper, but it's the important work that keep us safe in these buildings that we travel in. So thank you for that. Would you provide to the chair the number of buildings, to your knowledge? I don't mean for you to start a whole new department to work on this, but from your knowledge, from when we passed that law, how many have complied? And the reason I raised this, Mr. Chairman, is I have a multi-unit structure that actually houses senior citizens that has taken all of this time to begin to comply. And the origin of this conversion was because of injuries to firefighters, first responders, when they went into a dry system. So I'd like to get a general understanding citywide, because we have all of these mature buildings that have undergone this process. And I want to just see how our work as a body actually gets translated into actual conversions, if that makes sense.
It absolutely makes sense. Council member, I appreciate your focusing on public safety, and you have demonstrated that over your years and your tenure, working with L&I, working on codes, being the chairperson for a special committee on demolition. So I know you uniquely have been involved on the ground level with making sure that, not just the structures and the people that you represent are safe, all right, but around the city, because you have been in a lot of citywide policies that have made significant changes in moving forward with the department in L&I, as well as, I guess, dovetailing it in with your public safety committee, because this is a public safety issue, both L&I and the safety of our citizens. So I want to thank you for your commitment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Adamo, I have a question. Mm-hmm. It just, if you could clarify that one way or another, that the department uses currently ASSE for other certifications, and do you believe it would be the best one for best practices for fire suppression moving forward?
Sure. The water department actually requires ASSE certification for backflow workers, which is a device that is used on sprinkler systems when they're being installed to keep the water from going the opposite direction of the way it should go. So it is a certification process that's already used by the city. And my understanding is that it's one of the more rigorous certifications, and it not only does it require the person taking the training to pass a written test that's 200 questions, but it also provides hands-on training, which, as far as I'm aware, it's the only certification that would require that hands-on training. That I think is crucial, that workers who are doing this very important work understand how to do it, have a fire pump in front of them and understand how to do the things that they need to do in order to get that fire pump to work the way it should, for example.
We certainly want the fire pump to work for when we need it. We certainly need it to be hooked up for when it is needed. It's my understanding that the water department has used the ASSE training. I think it's been over 20 years. Does that sound about right to you?
I was 20 years ago, so I wasn't very familiar with what was going on in the water department at that time. But it has been a requirement as long as I've been working for the city.
All right, and the folks that are installing any kind of fire suppression systems have a license currently, within Department of L&I, is that correct?
Correct.
All right, great. I have no further questions. I'm I'm going to check in the chat. Lauren, Ms. Atwell, would you be able to check in the chat and see if anyone has any questions?
No one has indicated any further questions.
Okay, I'm going to ask members of this committee one last time.
Actually,
anybody?
Councilmember Don would like to be recognized.
Councilmember Don, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I guess this is for Sarah. We had a conversation last week, Sarah, about the two different certifications. And I was wondering if you could just tell me I understand that the certification that we're voting on today, the ASSE, is a higher level of qualifications than the other certification. Are there any other major differences that you see regarding these two certifications?
I assume that you're referring to NICET as the other certification?
Yes, NICET.
Okay. My understanding is that the major difference between the two is that NICET requires you to pass a written test only. That the ASSE certification actually requires that hands-on training that NICET is lacking.
Okay. And I also understand that the implementation of this will be 18 months from when this is passed. Is that correct?
Correct. That's in the amendments of the bill.
And I also understand that there is available training, 2 or 3 potential centers in the city for people who are not in the union to get this training. Is that your understanding also?
My understanding is that currently there's only one training center in the city that offers this training, which is through the union. There are a couple of other training centers that are outside of the city, one of which is working on getting the 1510 training. Mary Ann, who is from ASSE, who will be testifying shortly, may be able to provide more information about how a testing center becomes certified, but essentially any training center that's currently training people who are doing this work are able to be certified from ASSE to be able to provide this training.
Okay,
which is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, you go first, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, which is where the 18-month implementation date becomes useful because they have 18 months to be able to provide the training.
I'm in favor of this legislation. I just want to make sure that we don't exclude anyone because of this certification. I want to make sure it's available to all of the contractors to take these courses, that's all. Anyway, thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Council Member. And, I want to make note that, the industry at large working with the department has worked extensively, making sure that the grace period and the time, 18 months for the amendment is, adequate time for anybody who is looking for certification, and it's not exclusive. All right, this is an all-inclusive certification that is in concert working with the mission of the Department of L&I and the industry at large, making sure that everybody is safe. So this isn't a union exclusive. This isn't a non-union exclusive. This is a certification that ensures the integrity of the systems that are installed by professionals with experience is installing it properly and making sure that we are safe. Especially this year alone, we have an uptick in fires. I'd hate to see something get missed. So I just want to note that for the record. And Ms. Atwell, is there anyone else? I will say this. Anyone else on our committee that wishes to have any questions for Ms. Adama? All right, that being none, Sarah, I appreciate your joining us here in your testimony. You could please read our next witness, please.
Wayne Miller, Don Sweeten, and Jerry Waits.
Okay, would whoever is the first panelist, please state your name for the record, and you may proceed with your testimony.
Hello, my name is Wayne Miller. I'm the business manager for the Sprinkler Fitters, Local 692. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank the committee for looking at our amendment to our licensing law to institute a much more stringent inspection process that, in my opinion, is a good thing. I sent a letter off to all the council people, each member, and to let them know that this is a public safety bill that's in front of your committee this week. And we urge the support. Simply stated, the bill requires a specialty fire suppression system certificate for people engaged in doing this work. One of my concerns were, it's come to my attention that over the last so many years that that a lot of it, some of the inspections that are being done aren't done properly. And the thing is, I think that's the most important component of a sprinkler system. To give you an example of some of the issues that brought this to our attention was systems not properly installed. One being at 507 South A Street. A system was installed. The system was certified by a contractor, and it was put into service, so to speak. It was a 28 room apartment building, and the system, a year later, when it was coming back for an inspection, found that the system was never hooked up. And the system, meaning by it was never hooked up, was the fire pump. It was a diesel fire pump, was never hooked up. And the people in that building were living in there for 1 year without any protection. That was brought to the attention of L&I, and license and inspection went out and did whatever they had to do. I don't know the end results because we don't get that feedback from license and inspection. That's one of a number of systems that were put in incorrectly. One being, when you bring a sprinkler system into any type of building, whether it's residential or commercial, you need an OS&Y valve. You need at least 30 seconds in order to turn the system off, and that system is controlled and it is monitored. We've had a number of complaints over the last couple of years that systems were being put in with quick opening devices. What that means, it's a valve that all you do is move a handle, and it could be bumped, and it could be turned off in a matter of a second. And there's no form to monitor that system. So, and anybody that does work on sprinkler systems knows that's a sacrilege to put a quick opening device on a main feed coming into a sprinkler system. That happens on a regular basis in the past number of years that we've been following this. I've worked with L&I for decades. I worked with the commissioners of L&I going back to Bob Sabidley, all the way up through Commissioner Burns, also with Dave Perry. I have a very good relationship with license and inspection because I feel I work as a partner with L&I and trying to do what's best for the industry. Councilman Dom has brought up a thing about whether union or non-union. That doesn't come into this. I don't look at union and non-union. I look at the industry. Because if a union contractor did something wrong, the whole industry would be affected by it. If a non-union contractor did something wrong, the whole industry is affected by it. And my main concern is to do things that are better for the industry, for the safety of people and also property. And so, like I said, these things have come to my attention for a number of years. When the fire happened, I believe it was called in Westchester. I think it was called the Barclay Friends. I received a call from someone from the city of Philadelphia, and I can't remember who it was. But the call was about inspections. So I looked at what happened at the Barclay Friends fire, and if you looked at that, one of the pictures they were showing an OS&Y valve with a tamper switch sitting on top of the valve. So from there, evidently, if there was a proper inspection done, that tamper switch would have been on the valve, and when it was taken apart, it would have sent a signal to let the people in that building know that the system was turned off and not in service. I believe, and this is just from my own point of view, that the system out there was different types of systems, and evidently they must have had sand holes in the pipes that were putting alarms out. And so what evidently happened is someone turned the system off. And the people in that nursing home had no protection, and people died. That's our concern in this industry. That gives a black mark to anyone doing the sprinkler work, whether it's union again or non-union. So that was my concern, and that was the start of moving towards the ASSE, because I've known that certification has been out there. So with that, what we put together what we wanted to do with the ASSE, and we contacted L&I through Dave Perry and Betsy and Elizabeth Baldwin. And we sat down with Dave and Elizabeth and brought up the amendment to the city licensing laws for installers. And together with L&I, we worked on that. And I said before, I try to work with L&I as a partnership, and I respect their knowledge of the situation. And with that, after that, we put that together and we worked out what needed to be done. Then I went to Councilman Heenan and asked him if he would introduce it. Prior to that, that's how we work in the sprinkler industry. We give all the respect to license and inspection, and if license and inspection isn't behind what's going on, that doesn't fare very well for the bill that you're going to introduce. But with the respect I have for Elizabeth Baldwin and Dave, we came together and we felt that we came up with a very good substitute to put in a specialty system for sprinkler fitters to do testing, inspection, and maintenance. Not all sprinkler fitters do inspections. In the industry, you have guys that work in construction that just concentrate on the work in construction, and then you have most companies have service companies, and they provide a van for those individuals to go around and do inspections. That's like a specialty. These guys are involved in that. Whether who you work for, that's something different. It's a lot different to do inspections than to install piping for a construction job. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to upgrade the inspection part of the inspection of testing and maintenance on sprinkler systems, because they have a lot of testing on sprinkler systems. They have annually, and every 5 years they have tests. Every 5 years is a complete test on every single thing in the building. Flowing the fire pumps, working with the standpipes, tripping all the different types of systems that they have. And that takes a special skill for someone a little bit higher than what they do in the construction industry. And that's one of the reasons why we went for this certification. So with that, I'll pass it on to my instructor to, if there's any technical questions about anything. Don Sweeten's here, willing to answer any questions, and myself. So I want to also thank council for the opportunity. Back to the chairman.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Miller. The other panelists that you have here are for technical questions only. Will they be providing any testimony?
Yes. Don Sweeten will be providing testimony for any questions or any technical issues that need to be answered.
Okay, so I'm going to hold off for any questions from this committee until Mr. Sweeten is finished with his testimony. So he may begin, state his name for the record, and proceed.
Yes. Hi, my name is Don Sweeten. I'm currently the training coordinator for Sprinkler Fitters Local 692. I have 31 years in the industry. I currently sit on multiple committees, and they relate to this hearing. I am the vice chair of the ASSC 15,000 Technical Committee, which is a national board, and I am the chairman of the recertification committee for the ASSC 15,000. A couple things that I just wanted to provide, and Wayne spoke on. So putting it in, use the word layman's terms, the quick shut-off valves that we have come to our attention that are installed on systems. So imagine you have a key to a car that has a chip in it and all this expensive components, and somebody installs a toggle switch right next to that renders the car useless. So, and that's basically is what is going on in some sprinkler systems that we've seen. These quick shut-off valves, they're not supervised. And when I say supervised, if somebody closes a sprinkler valve in a system, it's either going to send a signal to a central station. It informs the building or an alarm company that the system's off. Because a sprinkler system that has a closed valve is a deadly combination. It won't work, and it's very important. So I just wanted to clarify that side of it. The other side of it is ASSC is not a contractor certification. ASSC is the ASSC 15,000 is not a contractor certification. So we're not certifying contractors with the certification. What is happening is the actual field inspector, that's the individual, your frontline guy is the individual that's receiving this certification and validating that knowledge. And the difference, the main thing with the 15,000 versus the NICET is the verification of those skills, meaning that an individual that takes this class, upon completion, they must validate that they're able to fully do the functions of impairment of a sprinkler system and restoration of a sprinkler system, as well as the testing components that NFPA requires in the processes that have been developed to establish the proper function of all this equipment. NICET does not have any of those components into it, and to continue your NICET certification, all you need to do is attend some continuing education units that can be involved in almost any area of fire protection. Doesn't even have to really be specific to the inspection process. So as long as you keep maintaining your continuing education units, you can keep your certification. The ASSC, you need to return every 3 years. You will get an update on any codes that have changed, which they always are changing, and you need to revalidate your knowledge, and you need to revalidate that you are proficient in the practical skills of the systems. The other thing, Councilman Jones, you did ask in the beginning about the 2015 law in regards to dry systems going to wet. And I just wanted to stress on that. Thank you for that question. It's very important because what it was standpipe systems, and that is hugely important to our firemen out there every day. And so that was what that related to. There are a lot of specialty systems in the city of Philadelphia. Pre-action systems, wet systems, dry systems, and they all have different functions. And as technology becomes more engaged in fire suppression, as is the need to have qualified people to fully test and understand these systems.
Well, Mr. Sweeten, thank you for your testimony. Before I ask the committee for any questions, I'd like to recognize that we are joined by Council Member Squilla, and I also would like to offer mine and all of our sincere condolences for the passing of your father. Our prayers and our thoughts are with you, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So I have a question for Mr. Miller. Wayne, what was your timeline in working with the department on this piece of legislation or policy?
I'd say probably over a year.
So you've been working with the department for a year to fight for or to see that the department can recognize a quality training and inspection for our fire suppressions in the system?
Yes, I have, Bob.
Okay, and where does this apply? So now, what gets tested in the city when it comes to fire suppression? Is it residential only? Is it row homes? Is it commercial only? Or does everything get tested?
Bob, everything gets tested, residential, commercial. In residential, you have three types of systems. You have a 13, you have a 13R, and you have a 13D. The 13D system is the sprinkler system comes off the domestic water, and that's only a limited system with a certain amount of heads. That does not have an inspection to it, okay? Just the 13 on residential and the 13R on residential systems.
Can you put that in layman's terms? I have no idea what that means. So does two things. Does this bill add additional inspections, or we already inspect? It's just a quality of inspection.
We already do the inspections on the systems, the 13, 13R, and also commercial systems. That's done anyway. And this is nothing new that's going to be done. It's just creating an extra, taking the level of inspections up from a regular sprinkler fitter to someone that does this all the time with the certification.
Okay, which I guess wouldn't be all that many. Is that correct?
All the inspections will stay the same. That you'll do the inspections on all the systems that are required. And if you're looking about how many people that would do the inspections, right now we have, I guess, with I'd say there's 100, maybe 150 people in Local 692 that do inspections, but that's not the issue. The thing is that we have 500 members here, and all the members would, if they chose to take the certification and pass the certification, that would be another tool in their quiver to get a job with a contractor if they're looking for inspectors. So,
okay. And that's open for anybody who passes the certification process. Is that correct?
Yes, that is it. You have to. First of all, you need the sprinkler license as a journeyman, and then you have the ability to take the certifications. And if you pass the certification, the test, and you have the ability to do inspections. But like I said, every 3 years you have to come back and be recertified.
Okay. Question for Don, and I'll turn it over to members of the committee. You had mentioned something about a valve, a quick shut-off toggle switch in the car. So that practical experience, what does that mean? What is a quick valve for a shut-off that's dangerous?
So there's two problems there. So one is, by code, you have to have a valve that cannot close 5 seconds or open 5 seconds or less. And there's a reason for that, because you can cause a water hammer effect in a system you create a velocity water hammer, as we call it. So with some of the system sizes and pressures we sometimes deal with, that we have to be careful there as far as how quick and how slow we close a valve, so we don't cause those issues in a hammering effect. So that's one thing, and that's the reason that you can't use quick opening valves unless it is on a 13D system, which is the lowest level system. And in the areas where we found these, that wasn't the case. The second thing is all valves on a sprinkler system that are related to supply are both two things: indicating, which means you can tell by looking at them whether they're open and closed, and they need to be monitored. And monitored can be an electronic means, which probably 95% of them are. And so if somebody closes a valve, a signal is going to be sent to the building owner, the central alarm station, just so people are aware that that valve is closed. Because if the valve's closed, the sprinklers are not going to work. That's just common sense. But what is going on is we have these valves that have all of this technology hooked on. They're tamper-proof. When I say tamper, you're able to, it sends an alarm if they're closed. Well, before these valves there is a quick opening valve that's installed that basically renders all of that stuff useless.
Okay, thank you. Any members have any questions for this panelist? Well, thank you all for your testimony. If you could stand by in case any questions do arise, we would all appreciate that. Ms. Atwell, would you please read either our next panelist or our next person to testify?
Mary Ann Wakeman and Jack Morley.
Good morning. Hi. Please state your name for the record, and you may proceed with your testimony. Thank you.
My name is Mary Ann Wakeman. I'm with ASSE International. I'm the Professional Qualifications Director for ASSE International. And as people have mentioned before, we are the third-party certifier who will certify these fire protection specialists if this bill is passed. So ASSE is a standards developer, and we're a third-party certifier. We develop standards for both products and for professionals, and we certify both products and professionals. The certification for this specialist would be the ASSE IATMO ANSI Professional Qualification Standard for Inspection, Testing, and Maintenance of Water-Based Fire Protection Systems, what we're calling the ASSE 1510. We developed the standard over the course of many years, but it was finally completed in 2015. These take a while to complete, and we began certifying to it a few years later. We have now been certifying to this standard for approximately 2.5 years. We are an ASSE is an ANSI-approved standards developer. We develop standards under the ANSI process, the same as NFPA, who writes all of the fire code standards that people are complying with, NSF and UL. ASSE develops our standards under that process. So I just want you to understand that we are already in your codes with some of our other standards that we have. This is nothing new for what you've been doing. This particular standard is, in fact, a very stringent standard. It is. And it, the process was long to bring it about, and it came about because, as do all of our standards, because the industry asked that we develop a standard. They recognized a need, and so we filled that need by developing a standard. And these are life safety systems. The qualification of the person doing this makes a difference, and they will save lives and property as a result of doing it correctly. And in fact, lives and property can be lost or damaged if it's not done correctly. And that's why this standard was developed. And again, I say that it was developed under a process where we have consensus coming from throughout the industry, and that industry includes certainly people that are installing, inspecting, and testing fire suppression systems, the sprinkler fitters, but it also includes the engineers on these systems, and it includes fire marshals that are involved. And so we work together in the development, and we also have people from each of those categories on our technical committees to maintain this. So we just want to kind of bring this to you and have you understand who ASSE is and answer any of your questions about this. But we also want you to recognize that we are certainly not new to standards development. I know the chairman mentioned about ASSE being involved with backflow protection in the city of Philadelphia. In fact, I was not 11 years old 20 years ago, and I was working for ASSE at the time. And yes, I've been working with ASSE for 21 years, and ASSE has been certifying backflow testers in the city for longer than the 21 years that I've been with them. So I looked up the numbers, and there are over 4,000 backflow testers in the state of Pennsylvania alone. And for the most part, we have about half of our backflow testers are union and about half are non-union. It's a pretty close to a 50-50 split. So we're hoping that the same will come true with the 1510 as it becomes a part of what's happening in the city of Philadelphia. So I just wanted to bring that to you. ASSE does not do any training at all. As a third-party certifier, we can't do training. That would violate third-party. So the training is done by existing training providers, in whatever city or state that this is being done. And right now, Local 692 has been approved to offer the training, and we are certainly very hopeful that the other training providers in Philadelphia and surrounding area will apply to be recognized to offer it. And when I say recognized, what we're checking on is that they have the facilities available to do proper training, that they have the equipment available. We don't want people to be looking at a video about how a fire pump works or how an alarm panel works. They actually have to have this equipment available at their facility so that they can teach to it, and on it. So we're looking at that, and we're also looking that they have a curriculum prepared and training materials prepared so that the individuals who take a course at their facility have the ability to pass the exam. We don't think that's fair for anybody to bring in someone and train them if they are not training them to be successful in passing this certification exam. I know people have done a good job of pointing out the differences of what our certification is from some other certifications. Certainly a major factor is that hands-on component to it. Not only is the training course involved hands-on experience, but so does the actual exam. So it's a 200-question code-based exam. And codes, Don was talking about the different 13R, 13D, 13, those are all NFP codes, okay? And we make sure that the exam that we give at the conclusion of course is completely code-based, and that people understand how to look up the codes and what those codes are, because when they're out in the field, they should be talking code when they are in a facility, talking to the owner of that facility. So certainly it's a code-based exam, and also has a hands-on portion of the exam where they have to demonstrate in front of a proctor that they know how to do the tests that need to be done to properly inspect a fire suppression system. Now, I don't want to sugarcoat it. They need to meet the requirements.
Well,
you know, and that's what a stringent standard does. That's what a standard does, is we're not making just decisions on, oh yeah, we'll let you or we won't let you. We follow the rules. We have a standard and we follow the rules equally for everybody.
Well, thank you for that, because I've been fighting for that, and you know, when there's double standards, it's just unfair. So it's not apples to apples all the time. So everybody does have the opportunity,
yes,
as long as they meet the same standards. And you know, as somebody who sat on code panels like myself, and have had some experience, all right, codes are written because something went wrong. All right, either somebody had perished, right, or there was a catastrophe or a disaster because of some sort of installation or manufacturing defect, as well as new materials. So codes are important. Councilman Jones had mentioned that this is not a sexy or glamorous type of conversation, but it is so critical and important, all right, for people, and codes are that. All right, codes actually do that. So I want to thank you for that. I believe we have, I'm going to check on our members. Council Member Dom, I'd like to recognize you for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mary Ann, for your testimony. I just had a question. This certification that we're discussing today, legislation in front of us, is that required certification also in like New York, Baltimore, DC, Chicago, and other cities?
So yeah, let me address that a little bit. So it is a relatively new certification. It has been approved under legislation in the states of Illinois and the state of Washington. So it's on a statewide basis, not just in the city. It has been approved as one of the options for certification in those two states. And we are working on additional adoption in other locations. But it's as you know, code adoption, standard adoption is a slow process, and we're working towards that.
So if we adopt this and vote on it today, this might be us getting in front of the curve and being leaders in this, possibly.
Absolutely, absolutely. ASSE is a 114-year-old organization that we've been involved in this. And our motto for, I believe, that entire time is prevention rather than cure. And so that's what we're looking for here, is to make sure that we're ahead of this and making sure that a potential problem is stopped before it happens, and that you're not looking to do the fix, you're looking to do the prevention. And yeah, that's certainly where you would be.
All right, thank you very much for your testimony. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Council Member. Appreciate your line of questioning as always. And any other members of the committee have any questions for this witness? Marian, I appreciate your time, and thank you. If you could hang in to the end of this hearing, we would appreciate it in case any other questions arise through other testimony that will be offered here today. So thank you for the testimony. Ms. Atwell, could you please read the name of our next witness?
John Morley.
Thank you, Chairman Heenan, for the opportunity to testify. The layout, installation, inspection, and testing of life safety fire protection equipment has the complexity of medicine. I do not object to this bill, but I do not believe this bill will improve public safety. I believe that raising the standards by which fire suppression contractor licenses are awarded is the only way to improve public safety. I began working in the industry in 1978. My first job was operating 2 Landis machines simultaneously, fabricating system pipe. I went into business for myself in 1991. I personally sell, lay out, install, repair, inspect, and test water-based fire protection sprinkler systems and some special hazard systems. I have NICET Level 4 certification in water-based systems layout, NICET Level 3 certification in inspection and testing of water-based systems, NICET Level 2 certification in special hazards. I have backflow prevention assembly certifications from the New England Waterworks Association and the ASSE. I am OSHA 30 construction safety certified. I have licenses to lay out and install fire protection systems in the states of Maryland, Delaware, and New Jersey. The tipping point for my advocacy came in 2010 when 2 property owners asked me to submit false inspection reports. NFPA standards are significantly revised every 3 years. Technological advancements of the equipment never ends. The complexity of fire protection increases exponentially every year. A fire protection practitioner must be a perpetual student. Sadly, too many fire protection professionals fail to keep abreast of current NFPA standards and fire codes. I have witnessed dozens of new fire protection equipment installations that do not meet NFPA standards and will not perform as expected or will not perform at all, where impaired, disabled, and out of service without the property owner's knowledge, lacked required test equipment and could not be tested, or lacked other required equipment, malfunctioned, and caused property damage. These violations of NFPA standards were the result of negligence on the part of incompetent and unqualified people. I have witnessed other installations that in no way resembled the approved drawings. These violations were the result of intentional and willful fraud by those who I consider criminals. This bill fails to address the layout and installation of fire protection equipment, the root cause of the harm I described above. Contractors, not engineering firms, are laying out the lion's share of new fire protection equipment installations. Too many fire protection contracting companies fail to directly employ anyone with the technical knowledge to lay out fire protection equipment. These companies hire freelance technicians to create the necessary technical drawings and hydraulic calculations for the acquisition of a building permit. In some cases, the company ignores the layout and calculations and installs smaller pipe or fewer sprinklers. The freelance technicians are never invited to inspect the systems that they were involved with. These companies have no quality control mechanisms whatsoever. These companies have invited council to impose mechanisms to ensure compliance with NFPA standards. In the 60s and 70s, fire protection layout had 3 levels of scrutiny. First, the insurance companies conducted a plan review and commissioning of new systems. Almost every insurance company had higher, more stringent standards than NFPA. Second, most property owners hired engineers to actually lay out the equipment or at least oversee the layout and installation of new systems. These engineers also conducted plan reviews, routine inspections as work progressed, and took part in commissioning new systems. Third, AHJs performed plan reviews and inspection. Today, unfortunately, most insurance companies have abandoned abandoned their standards, and very few private properties submit drawings and calculations to insurance companies for review and approval. Only government property owners and private owners of very large buildings routinely hire third-party engineers to oversee the layout and installation of new systems. In most private sector construction, the layout of fire protection is placed on the contracting company, and the only scrutiny of the layout and installation of new systems is by the AHJ. In most municipalities, but not all, qualified engineers make plan reviews and issue building permits, but do not visit job sites to confirm that the installed system matches the approved drawings. Site visits and commissioning of life safety fire protection equipment is pushed off to building inspectors who, with all due respect, are not trained in the science of fire protection and not qualified to inspect fire protection equipment. Barclay Friends was a light and ordinary hazard 1 institutional use facility protected by 2 water-based wet pipe fire protection sprinkler systems and 2 water-based dry pipe fire protection sprinkler systems. The personal care unit design violated NFPA 13 requirements for design density and size of hydraulic design area and failed to protect small closets. The attics were incorrectly calculated and used small orifice sprinklers in violation of NFPA 13. Small orifice attic system sprinklers were at risk of being blocked and obstructed by dry pipe system scale debris. In short, the pipe sizing for 3 of the 4 systems was too small to deliver the required water. A woefully inadequate 1-inch, quote, main supply pipe supplied 278 sprinklers in the personal care unit. A fire originating in the personal care unit or in any attic most likely would have overwhelmed the fire protection equipment, resulting in the total loss of the building and a threat to life. In fact, 4 elderly people died in that building. In Philadelphia, 36 North 3rd Street is a 4-story light hazard mixed-use facility protected by a water-based wet pipe fire protection sprinkler system, manual standpipe, and electric fire pump. After a fire in this building, I was asked to replace a fused sprinkler and return the system to service. While I was working, the property owner asked me to certify the system. I could not certify the system because the fire pump was disabled and taken out of service. The standpipe violated several NFPA 14 requirements. Mechanical closets and washer-dryer closets were not protected by sprinklers in violation of NFPA 13R, and no backflow prevention assembly existed. I subsequently learned that the standpipe was installed without a proper permit. Property owner attempted to bribe me to certify the system. In addition, I witnessed what appeared to be a bribe of the fire alarm system worker. Every certification of this property is suspect. Safeguard Self-Storage in Philly is a 3-story ordinary hazard Group 1 self-storage facility protected by a water-based wet pipe fire protection system. On the 2nd floor, the contractor installed sprinklers at 400 square feet, double the spacing that was approved. In other words, the contractor installed only half of the required sprinklers. Standard coverage sprinklers were installed, not the required, approved, and appropriate UL-listed extended coverage sprinklers. Floor and ceiling obstructions to the sprinkler spray patterns were present. This system will not perform as expected. Installing only half of the approved sprinklers constitutes a fraud, in my opinion. Mercy Hospice on 13th Street is a 4-story light hazard residential facility for homeless women protected by a water-based wet pipe fire protection sprinkler system and electric fire pump. The owner asked me to inspect and test a backflow prevention assembly wherein I discovered a closed gate valve in the street. The system had no water supply. The contractors who inspected and tested the system fraudulently certified that the equipment was in service and functioning. In Appendix D of the testimony I've emailed to council has backup documents on that. You have storage buildings.
Mr. Morley, this is Bobby Heenan. We do have your testimony in writing, and you've submitted to all members, and it is submitted to the record for the record. Just so you know, would you be able to summarize the remainder of your testimony? Because I know it is quite lengthy.
Yes, sir.
And it is important because you're actually, giving credence to, properly trained installation and inspection. So if you could summarize the remaining part of your testimony, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, sir. My pleasure. NICET only requires 2 years of relevant work experience to be awarded level 2, 5 years for level 3, 10 years for level 4. Requiring only 2 years of relevant work experience for an individual who designs fire protection equipment is simply not adequate to become knowledgeable enough to assure that the layout and installation of life safety fire protection equipment is correct. An adequate licensing law must require the direct employment of at least one individual with the appropriate NICET Level 3 certification in water-based systems layout or special hazards. The direct employment of an individual with NICET Level 2 certification in the discipline of inspection and testing of water-based systems. All new systems must be certified by a compliance agent, NICET certified level 4 in the appropriate discipline or a PE, that the new equipment is in fact installed pursuant to the approved technical drawings and hydraulic calculations. A plan reviewed by NICET level 4 in the appropriate discipline or a PE, requiring that licensed company employ at least one person with 5 years of relevant experience is reasonable. The administration of a law should require that the compliance agent swear an affidavit that he or she will never knowingly approve a new system that departs materially from the approved drawings. Documentation that the approval of the new system on an appropriate material and test certificate, above ground piping, standpipe, fire pump, underground, etc. Maintenance of public liability and errors and omissions insurance, notifying the license and inspections if a violation of NFPA standards or fire codes has been approved.
Mr. Morley,
yes,
summary, please.
Yeah.
Can you wrap it up, please, in your summary?
I'll just end it right there, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you again for taking your time out in this important public safety issue. Are there any other members have any questions, or are there members that have any questions or for this witness? John, thank you so much for your time. Is Sarah still on the line? I just have one quick question, and then we're gonna move to into our public hearing.
Yes, I'm still here.
Hi, Sarah. Just a quick question. Third-party inspections and or third parties in general with the department, that is not uncommon. That is something that it has a wide range from bouncer training to I'm going to say, if this bill passes, it would be for from fire suppression and other third parties. Is that correct?
Absolutely. It's not uncommon. We frequently use third-party inspectors for special inspections, for plumbing inspections, for things that really our inspectors are not, don't have the special knowledge required to complete an inspection for those things. So things such as underpinning, we always require a third-party inspector for that. So this would line up with existing procedures that the department already has.
Unless we're going to hire 700 more inspectors, right? That's a joke.
Correct.
That is a joke. Okay, great. Thank you for answering that. So there is a precedent for third-party inspectors when it comes to public safety and inspecting our industries, trainings, and different types of policies. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else on the committee that has any questions for anybody that has testified here today. Ms. Atwell, is there any other folks who were signed up for testimony?
Nope, that's the end of the witness list.
Okay, so this will conclude the hearing, and we will not go into a public meeting. Since there are no other questions from members of this committee, no other witnesses to testify, I will ask that if there is anyone else present in the hearing whose name we have failed to call and then they wish to offer testimony, now is the time to do so. Hearing none, I want to thank all of the panelists again and the witnesses for their participation today. We absolutely value your opinion, your expertise. I now invite all panelists and witnesses to leave and disconnect from this public hearing before we go into our public meeting. I will now go into a pause of the proceedings briefly so the multiple participants have the opportunity to leave. Ms. Atwell, I'm going to wait for your signal to proceed to our public meeting.
It looks like we are good to go.
Can you repeat that?
You're good to start.
Great. So this concludes the public hearing of the committee. We will now go into a public meeting to consider the action to be taken on the bills before us today. The chair recognizes Council Member Don for a motion on the amendment to bill number 200365.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I offer an amendment to bill number 200365. A copy of the amendment has been circulated to all members of the committee. Move that the amendment to bill number 200365 be approved.
Second.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that who was on the record for seconding the motion?
Councilman Johnson.
Councilman Johnson as the second on the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that the amendment to bill number 200365 be approved. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. The amendment to bill number 200365 has been approved. The chair now recognizes, again, Council Member Dom for a motion to bill number 200365 as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that bill number 200365 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
It has been, let the record reflect that it has been seconded by Council Member Gilmore Richardson. Thank you, Councilwoman. It has been seconded. Now that it's been moved and properly seconded, that the bill 200365 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at our next session of council. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. This will conclude the business before the Committee of License and Inspection. I want to thank all the members for your time and your due diligence into this important policy. And I want to thank all those who testified. And I failed to mention, I want to thank the industry, the BIA and other partners that are in the construction and safety issue that has been brought to us today. Thank you for your cooperation. Thank you for your partner with the city and all the stakeholders involved. So this concludes our Committee on License and Inspection. Thank you so much. Have a blessed day.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, everyone.